we have another listener of the week that we're going to share. This person says, fabulous podcast. Oh, this is from D. Nichter. I've watched all these to date, and I love them. They always have great guests, awesome tips, and you can always have a few laughs while listening. Guys, she's right about that, isn't she? These three are great together. Looking forward to many more. Thank you, D. Nichter. We really appreciate you sharing with us and writing a review. If you love listening to our podcast, please take just a moment and go to our website or on your favorite podcast platform, subscribe, download our episodes, and write us a review. Now, let's just hop right into this episode.
Mike and Christina, I'm excited for this episode. I feel like it's going to bring out a lot of feelings in a lot of engaged couples. Do you guys remember when we were in school and you would play kickball or volleyball or something and you picked teams?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. Just like you would be in school and want to pick your perfect team, or a coach wants to pick their perfect team, a bride and groom, they want to pick the perfect team to be part of their bridal party on wedding day. But there's so much to it.
Well, Sharon, why would they want to pick their perfect team like you're saying?
Well, when you think about your bridal party, those are the people that are going to be with you for every step of the planning process. They're standing up there with you on the most important day of your life. So you really, really want to consider carefully the people that you choose. You don't want to be forced into picking someone by a mom or, an aunt, or
I'm supposed to have this family member.
Yeah.
Mike, you've seen this before. I'm supposed to invite this person because they've been a family friend for umpteen years.
Yeah,
you really want to choose carefully.
And just because you were friends with them or you grew up with them or they're a family or a brother or a sister, that does not mean they need to be part of your squad that day.
So we're going to cover a lot of things today. We're going to talk about proposing to your bridal party.
What?
It's so fun. Like, how do you ask, once you do decide who those special people are, how do you ask them to be a part of your wedding? But before we get to that, let's talk about how we narrow that list down and who those people actually should be.
One of the things I'd like to share with our listeners is if this is a good topic for you or you'd like to hear more, we really went deep in this when we first launched. It's one of our first episodes, maybe one of my favorite titles. Do you all remember the title of that episode? The F Word and the A Team. Remember, Sharon?
That was all you, Sharon, too.
Sharon, I think that was all you. What did that stand for? Do you remember?
Frienders?
That's right. So you can go back in our past episodes if you really like this topic, because we covered a lot of great information. But today we're going even further into your wedding squad.
We are actually going into a bridal party.
Ooh.
So what's the average number of bridesmaids or groomsmen that you should have in your wedding party?
I would say, I don't know what the average is. My best guess would be 5 to 6 on each side. However, I've done weddings with as many as 11 or 12 on each side and 6 kids. It's like herding cats all day. It's crazy.
And that's one thing this past weekend, or just yesterday, to be honest with you. I talked to a bride and groom, and they have 12 bridesmaids and 12 groomsmen. And, I always laugh at them and say, oh, it was hard to decide, wasn't it? Oh, and the first thing she said was, oh, well, I went to school with this person and I was in her wedding, and he said the same thing. Just because you have not seen that person, you probably haven't seen that person for 5 or 6 years. That doesn't mean you have to have them in your wedding.
And Sharon, that you may have a different twist on the more the merrier, because that's a lot of people to herd.
I actually do have a different twist on it. What it really comes down to, though, is if those people, if there are literally, like Mike just used an example, 12 people, if there are 12 people that are that important to you and that close to you and that special to you, sign them up. We'll figure it out. But if you're doing it out of, honestly, in my opinion, it's usually cousins. They feel like they can't ask one cousin that they are really close to without asking the other cousins that maybe they're not as close to. And I've had brides even that say, well, she was my college roommate, but she graduated from college 10 years ago, and they really haven't hung out a lot since. Like, those kind of things, I think you just need to really evaluate.
Well, I think, you may still want that person, or you may still talk to that person over the years, and you haven't seen them for really 10 years. But, I mean, there's other ways that you can get them involved in your wedding other than being a bridesmaid and walking down the aisle. I mean, they can, if they're musically inclined, they can play a song, they can sing a song, they can even read a chapter out of the Bible or a verse or something like that. They can be involved in different many ways where you don't have to have a herdle of cattle.
Right, they can man your guest book for you.
Yeah.
Hand out programs.
Ushers,
yes.
Sharon, one of the other things, you deal a lot with people's schedules. I mean, if you have 12 bridesmaids and 12 groomsmen, you've got your engaged couple. I'm not the best at math, but isn't that 26 different schedules? Because they've got to get fitted for dresses, possibly tuxes.
You run into a lot of logistical problems. Transportation, you go from needing a little Mercedes Sprinter party bus to you need a shuttle. Not only is that more money, it's bigger to park. It's not as party atmosphere sometimes as a small party bus. You also run into your floral bill is going to be higher because every bridesmaid's going to need a bouquet. Every groomsman's going to need a boutonniere. And then, I even had a wedding recently where they didn't all fit in the front of the church. When we lined them up, they didn't fit in the front of the church. So there's just a lot of things to think. And like I said, if it's important to you and you look at that list of the people and you cannot imagine one of those people not standing up there with you, then you tell your wedding planner that and she'll figure it out.
Mike, since Sharon mentioned that, I didn't even think about the transportation part. And if you're not getting married and your reception at the same place, or you're going somewhere to take photos.
Well, and the transportation is a real big thing, but also when you look at, and Sharon will know this, when they're planning their bachelor or bachelorette party, the thing now is people are traveling. To try to coordinate 12 people, not just with transportation, but traveling to another state or another city to have a party, that's going to be very difficult too.
Yes.
I hadn't even thought about that, Sharon. That's a really good point.
Yeah. So, you want all the people that are special to you for sure, but you don't want to feel guilted or pressured into having someone.
Well, another thing about picking your squad is when it comes to maid of honors and best men, it doesn't always have to be a male gender or a female gender playing those parts. It can also be, if I've got a best friend that's a woman, she can be my groomswoman, or the lady can be, or the groomsman can be the best man. The maid of man, or however you want to word that.
Come on, Sharon. She'll know, Mike. She'll know the answer to that.
It's a groom's maid and a bride's man.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just did a wedding a couple weeks ago, and bride and groom, and they each had an opposite sex best friend on their side for the bridal party. And it was so much fun. We had a blast with it.
Well, and anything goes. It's up to the couple, right? It's their special day. We've talked about that before.
If those people are the special people to them, they should 100% be up there. And it used to be that if the bride had a best friend who was male, for example, the male would be a groomsman and stand on the groom's side. But forget that. He's not the groom's best friend. He's the bride's best friend. So I 100% think you put people where they belong. If they are that special in that bride's heart, then they stand on her side.
And when it comes to dressing them also, just like I think we're talking about the same wedding. But one of the ladies was on the groom's side, and she came in and she was fitted for a suit.
And she was adorable.
And she looked great. So
yeah.
If possible, do you think that we may be able to share that out to our listeners?
Sure, as long as the bride's okay with it.
Well, yeah, that would be great to share some of that. What else you got, Sharon? I know you have a lot of things. You've seen it, done it. We've talked about this before. What else you got?
Well, I think especially when you're choosing, like Mike was just saying, your maid of honor and your best man, or like we said, vice versa, you really want to think about choosing that person even more wisely than your others, because that person's going to have extra responsibilities. That person is going to be tasked with attending wedding meetings with you. They're going to be tasked with, setting up that amazing group text for the bridal party to where they keep everybody in check and make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. They're going to go to your probably dress shopping with you. They're going to go to fittings with you. They're going to learn how to bustle your dress. And then on the day of, even if you have a wedding planner, they're going to count on that maid of honor and that best man to do some extra duties. So when you choose that person, of course you want it to be someone super special to you, but you also want to consider that person's schedule. If you pick a maid of honor that lives in another state, she's not going to be able to go to all those appointments with you. She's not going to be able to sit down and meet with your wedding planner for 2 hours over coffee. So you want to make sure that you choose someone not only that's close to you, but someone that is available to you.
Well, I know when I got married, I had really two good close friends. One of them was the partying type. One of them was the strict follow the rule type. And I did that on purpose, which they were good friends of mine. But so, they split the responsibilities. One of them planned the bachelor party. The other one was more like taking care of me and make sure that I didn't get in trouble and that kind of thing. So, I think it's okay too if you can't decide on just one best man or maid of honor, you can have more than one. So,
yeah.
And you're seeing that more and more now.
I just did a wedding a few weeks ago, and the bride had 2 sisters, and she was very close to both of her sisters. So she had co-maids of honor. And it was kind of like just what you were describing. I knew which maid of honor to call for which task because I knew their personalities. I also think that it's really important when you ask someone to be a maid of honor, a best man, or even just a member of the bridal party, that you be really honest and clear about your expectations. Once again, budget. I think you need to let them know about what it's going to cost them to do this, because it's not cheap to be, especially a bridesmaid. Not only do you purchase a dress, hair and makeup average probably between $150 and $200 for a bridesmaid. There's usually shoes to purchase. There's jewelry to purchase. There's undergarments to purchase. They usually are going to travel and do some type of bachelorette party that they're going to pitch in on. So I think it's just really important to be honest and to give people grace if it's something that they aren't comfortable doing.
Well, something that I think is real important too is just because, say, Julie over here asked me to be in their wedding 6 years ago, that does not mean that you have to ask Julie to be in your wedding.
100%.
Because sometimes I feel like they're not even close.
Relationships change.
Relationships change yearly nowadays. So just don't feel like you have to ask them just because you were in their wedding.
Well, I think now would be a great time to share, if people haven't already heard, that we've put together our first boot camp. And I think what we want people to know is that it is available on our website, and we dive into the difference between maid or matron of honors versus bridesmaid. And Sharon, there's a lot of topics in that boot camp. If you feel like you'd rather be more informed and be able to show up, then make sure you go to our website and check out that information. I know we got a lot of topics to cover, but I just wanted to tell people that because we've had people ask us a lot.
Yeah, we're really excited. I think it's also important to remember that if you do have that bridesmaid that says, I'm sorry, I just am not in a life position right now to afford this. I just can't do it. Here are your choices. You pay her expenses for her, which might make her uncomfortable. So you need to have that discussion. Or you let her have another role in the wedding. Maybe, you're making signs. You're using your Cricut and you're making all your wedding signs. Maybe that's something she's really good at and she could help with. So there's a lot of different ways to include people without putting them up front and making them pay the money.
And also with that, if you ask someone and they respond and says I really cannot afford to do this right now, don't get your feelings hurt.
Right.
Turn around and do what you just said and have them participate in a different way.
One of the age-old sayings may fit in here. Honesty is the best policy.
Exactly.
If it's not a good fit, just being upfront and honest might not be the easiest, but at the end of the day, it's what's best to share with that engaged couple.
Yeah, I think you just need to have honest expectations, clear discussions. It's just like when we talked about setting a budget. If all of these discussions are had at the beginning and they're had up front, then you don't have to worry about hurting someone's feelings later.
Well, and I think, Sharon, you've laid that out really well. We've talked about this before. Communication. I mean, that's what it really boils down to, right? Is just that open line of communication.
I would much rather a friend tell me, I really want you to do this. Here's how much it's going to cost. Here's the time that's going to be involved. How do you feel about that? Instead of just, I want you to be a bridesmaid, and then I find out 6 months later that I'm in for $2,000 and a plane ticket and,
Well, another thing that comes up quite often every time I'm doing one of my consultation, it's about the ring bearer and the flower girl. And they say, some of my couples say, well, we're looking for someone to do that. We're trying to figure out who that's going to be. Really, if you have to figure it out or think about it or, think about who you're going to ask, don't feel like you have to have those in your wedding because that's not necessary. Especially today, a lot of weddings are just adults only. So then you have your kids in the wedding or a niece or a nephew in the wedding. And then that's kind of weird also with talking among other people that's coming because they want to bring their kids, but you've told everybody they can't bring their kids. So if that happens, you should have a room or something for a babysitter to stay with those kids. But don't feel like you have to have a child in your wedding.
I've done that quite often, and it's honestly all in how it's worded. So, you don't want to say, hey, I want your kids to be in my wedding, but I absolutely don't want to put up with them at my reception. They're going to drive me nuts. What you want to say is, I would love to have them in the wedding, but I really want, you and your husband, you and your wife to enjoy an adult evening, where you can really enjoy yourselves with us. So we have provided childcare for them
perfect.
After the wedding. So it's all in how it's worded, and people will accept it better than you think.
Can I ask something? And brothers and sisters
of the couple?
Yes. I feel like, is it if you have a really close relationship?
Right.
How does that go about? I know I'm not really asking the question right, Sharon, but you know what I'm talking about, Mike.
I do.
I mean, if you have a close relationship with your brother or sister, that's totally acceptable to ask them to be in your wedding.
So not automatic.
But not automatically.
Okay.
I mean, I've got good friends that has, brothers that are not close to them, and they ask them to be an usher over a groomsman. But that's another thing when those, like mom's telling you, yes, you should have your brother in the wedding, but you don't see your brother once a year. Don't feel like you have to, just because he's your brother or your sister, don't.
I will say, while I agree with you, Mike, you kind of this is a fine line because your friends from college, your, roommate, that kind of stuff, those relationships may come and go, but your siblings are your siblings and they're your siblings forever. So I would say lean toward including them unless there's a reason not to, unless there's something in that relationship where, you're not going to feel supported and loved on that day by that person.
You know what? I think both of your answers are great because there's two sides to everything.
Every situation is different.
Yeah,
every
absolutely.
situation is different.
I have had weddings where one sibling was in the bridal party and another sibling was not, and it's because the relationship was not what you would typically think of a sibling relationship being. But you just, err on the side of yes, unless there's a reason.
The other thing too is we've said this in other episodes. There's no rules. It's your all's
exactly
day.
Right.
In every wedding party, they're going to go off of something different. So they need to go, what I'm hearing you all say is what's the best fit for them in their situation.
Right. Absolutely. You have to, just really search. Each member of the couple needs to just really search their heart and decide who's important to them. But once you get that list narrowed down and once you decide, there's so much fun to be had. And it's like, usually a year of hanging out with these people. And, I love a good bridal party proposal. I
knew she was waiting for this subject. Could you see her face light up as she was getting ready to talk about it?
Smiling over there.
I do. I love the stories behind their proposals.
You love all things events. And
I do.
It's kind of like a little mini event as a proposal.
Yeah, it's gotten so creative. I mean, I know you're a little younger than me, Christina, but back when I got married, the first time, you just ask somebody.
That's me too.
You might call them. You might ask them, when you're over at their house or something. But now, a lot of my couples, especially my brides, they put together proposal boxes. And there might be, a cup in there that says bridesmaid or something. And there's always a little poem about standing up with them on their wedding day. And I just think it's so cool. And when we do photography, I always like to get one of those boxes if I can, so we can tell the whole story of that wedding and have the photographer shoot the very first thing.
And the one thing too, talking about brides and bridesmaids doing that, the groom is getting involved with this too. I mean, we did this one recently where the groom gave boxes to the guys, and there was like a little shot glass in there and a little flask of something, but then it also had a tie in the box. And it had a little note, help me tie the knot.
That's
adorable. I thought that was really cute.
I'll be honest with you. I did this when Josh and I got married. I did baskets is how I did it, and tried to incorporate something meaningful because at that time they didn't know that they were going to be asked, and just kind of completely caught them off guard. And I'll have to look and see if I can dig up something. But I know that, Sharon, you've been part, and Mike, you have too, of recent weddings that I'm sure we could find some pictures to share for those listeners out there that may have never even thought about this or seen it before.
I had an adorable couple, and the whole theme, they had a theme for the wedding, of course, which was your normal, classic romantic. But they had a theme for their bridal party. And it wasn't tying the knot, it was tie-dyeing the knot. So there was a tie-dyed t-shirt and a tie-dye cup in the proposal box. The bachelorette party.
That's cute.
She's tie-dyeing the knot, and they all wore tie-dye t-shirts.
That's really cute.
I'll try to find some pictures. It was really
cool.
Cute.
That's what I really like about these stories is your creative mind can run wild, and whatever you like or however different you want to be. That's what I love hearing about these stories.
I've got to say, this past 2 years, even with the pandemic going on, I have seen more brides do these special little events. I'm doing one this weekend, and I have to say it's Mandy and Allison. And they're doing this proposal little party. And I'm excited about it. And that's the third one that they have done.
I would hang out with
in
those
the last
two anywhere, any weekend.
It's crazy.
Well, I tell you what, I bet you we can get some pictures of that to share.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be great to include. Sharon, I know that we talk all the time about this different stuff, but you talked about proposals. What about gifts? I know this is a question, even people have said something to us about it. Where do you start with those, with your wedding party gifts?
I get asked for help on this quite a bit. It's customary for the bride and the groom to give gifts to their bridal party. I get asked for suggestions on what to give, but what I get asked more than that is, when do I give them? I've seen anything from most brides give something to get ready in the day of. I've seen robes. I've seen matching pajamas. I've seen flannel shirts. I've seen just white Oxford cloth shirts, monogrammed with their names. So usually something to get ready in. They usually gift them the jewelry they want them to wear on wedding day. And then for the guys, it's usually socks. If they're going to wear suspenders, it's suspenders. Here, once again, we're from Kentucky, so there's usually bourbon and sometimes there's a cigar. But a lot of couples don't know when to give the gift. And it used to be you always gave those things out at rehearsal dinner. But I'm seeing more and more that my brides give them out right before we start getting ready into hair and makeup on wedding day.
So let's make this clear, because we've talked about two different gift-giving deals here. So when they proposal party, or when they ask the bridesmaids or the groomsmen to be a part of it, you give a gift then. That's popular now. And then the day of the wedding or the day before the wedding, you give another gift, almost like saying thank you for being here.
And when you're talking again about that wedding budget, think about that. Do you want to buy 5 gifts or do you want to buy 12 gifts?
Well, and also they have invested in your special day. And I think, as you all said, it's really a thank you, not only for showing up, not only for pitching in or holding up your responsibility in, if you want to word it that way, but just genuinely thank you for being here and sharing this day with me.
And your bridal party, too, they're always included in your rehearsal dinner, and that's usually a very nice dinner. Most of the time, they get to bring their significant others. They get that special spot at the reception. If a couple chooses to do a head table or a king's table, then they get that special seat of honor at the reception. So there's a lot to it, and you want to recognize those people that have been such a special part of your life, and you're getting to that point.
And you're going to remember this for a long time. So when it comes to picking your squad, I know we've given a lot of information on how to or not to, or don't choose this or choose this person, but you got to think about it. It's a really important day. And you want to pick the people that's going to help it be as smooth as possible.
Yeah, and you want to think too, when I'm 55 years old and I look at my wedding pictures, are the people in these pictures still going to be in my life? Are they still going to be what I call a major player in my life?
When I was younger, and that was 30 years ago, when you go through a stage in life where everybody's getting married in your age group. And it seems like Pam and I both was in weddings over and over and over. And I'll be honest with you, and they were in our weddings, and we did exactly, we were in theirs, let us be in theirs. And it was just kind of a big thing, and we don't speak to any of them right now. And I hate that.
And it's not that there was a major falling out or anything. Life just ebbs and flows.
Life changes. Yeah. But it makes me stop and think that, maybe I should reach out to those people. Hey, how you doing? You want to go get a drink something? Yeah.
Yeah, you should.
This has been great, and I think people will find this information, just like our past episodes. We hear from people that give us feedback or that it was beneficial, and I think this is one that's going to bring to light some things. But remember, these are our opinions, and our takes on some of this. There are no rules. You can do your event how you want, but these are trends. These are things that you're seeing happen, and just a conversation about your squad and them supporting you, and in turn you supporting them. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and we hope that you will take just a few minutes to visit our website or your favorite podcast platform to write us a review. Mike, Sharon, I think this has been great, and we can't wait to hear your feedback. So until next time, everyone stay safe and happy wedding planning.
This episode of The Ring, The Bling, and All the Things was brought to you by The Wedding Experts, whose mission is to connect engaged couples easily and efficiently to local wedding experts. Visit theweddingexperts.love to connect with your local wedding vendors, as well as access valuable resources to help you plan all the details for your big day. If you are a wedding professional, there are affordable and effective advertising opportunities available to you by visiting theweddingexperts.love/advertise.